Welcome into the Moi Ploy Boys Dynasty Podcast, the greatest podcast that you didn't want or ask for. And now introducing your hosts, Jake the Gluten-Free Karras and Peter Cheater Pigoo Hot Sizzle O'Donnell.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men who act like children of all ages, the Missouri Crime Society proudly presents to you the five-time podcast of the year, the Moi Ploy. What's up, my homies? Welcome in. We've got a super exciting playoff picture that I cannot wait to break down for you guys on this crappy episode of the Moi Ploy Dynasty Boys podcast. All right. Let's get straight into it. I'm going to show you what I see here. Boom. All right. Let's take a look, not that league, at this one. All right. Week 13 had some interesting things happen. Not this game here between Tom and myself. It was a predictable blowout. Juan and Eddie faced off. Juan got the win and secured himself the playoff spot. Well done, Juan. This game was absolutely meaningless for Eddie. Jim got himself a playoff spot over Brett. As predicted, I predicted Brett would go 7-7. Now the Ray stomping cheater, who was absolutely throwing in the towel here on his season, starting his scrubs and sitting his studs. I think he had Rashad White on the bench. He had Jerry Jeudy on the bench. Jalen Waddle on the bench. Not that Jalen Waddle did anything. It was actually a brilliant sit by Pigoo there. Sorry, Peter Hot Sizzle. He's Hot Sizzle here, not Pigoo. My bad. And then this was the game that did not go how I predicted and changes everything. Rich upsetting Jordan. Why does that matter? I'm glad you asked, because Brett gets to face next week Peter, who is literally starting no one, trying to improve his draft position, hoping that Rich can knock off Ray. So there's actually two different ways that Brett, who was previously going to miss the playoffs until Jordan lost. There's two ways that Brett can get in. Here's how. Ray's facing Rich. Rich is not starting his scrubs and scrubbing his starters. And Jordo, who's facing Jim. And Jim's got a pretty strong team. In the standings, so if Jordo wins, goes to 8-6, he's good. But if Jordo loses, his points for is actually lower than Brett's. Fascinating. So is Ray's. Ray's is 200 points below Brett's. So, sorry. Hope y'all don't pick that up on the microphone. I'm shifting around, knocking into things. What this means is that Brett and, Ray and Jordan are both on the hot seat and both must win. If they win, they're in. But Brett is going to get a free win against Peter, because Peter, who tanked his points for last game, is hoping that Rich wins, and then he can jump up one draft spot ahead of Rich into the 102 instead of the 103. And that would be a big deal for him, because then that prevents me, who's holding Rich's first, from boxing him out of getting any running backs or any quarterbacks, because if there's two first-round running backs in the NFL draft, that's going to be the 101, 102. Or if there's no first-round running backs, then there's going to be like two elite quarterback prospects, which would be the 101, 102. And so I can box Peter out of a position and make him even more desperate and possibly get him to trade up to the 102 and overpay, because he needs some quarterback help and some running back help. So his running back situation isn't quite as desperate as his quarterback situation. All right. That's that for the playoff picture. pretty succinct, actually. Wrapping up Brett's path to the playoffs. He has to win, which is going to happen. He gets a free win over Peter. Yeah. And so Ray has to beat Rich. Very, very doable. And the hard one is going to be Jordan trying to beat Jim. Now, if Jordan loses to Jim, another interesting thing, Team Juan Solo, my boy, been texting you nonstop recently. Love you, baby. Juan actually is holding Jordan's pick, and that pick would become the 104, a fairly valuable rookie pick. But if Jordan makes it, then that 104 goes from being guaranteed in its spot to somewhere between 105 and 110. Goes completely random, any of those 6 spots. The 5, the 6, the 7, the 8, the 9, the 10. Yeah, 6 spots. So that's all that we really have to talk about for the playoff picture and the potential draft spot implications coming out of this. Let's move on. And I am doing a team audit of the rosters here. And the first roster that I want to talk to is Rich. Rich, I think, has a very interesting roster. Did not work out this year. He has been coming on a little bit later this season. Where do I see just Rich's team? There we go. Rich, let's talk about your team here. You have got, you know what? I'm going to actually show you what I'm reading here, so you guys get a little bit better idea of how I'm breaking this down. All right, Rich, here is your roster here, brother. You have got, let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit. Make that a bit easier. Yeah, it's better. You've got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is an S-tier quarterback. That's like the 5th or 4th pick in a startup right now. Joe Burrow is elite. He's got young elite weapons. This is like the Cincinnati offense is literally the perfect situation. Great quarterback, great receiving weapons, solid running back who's getting older, so they're going to rely more and more on the pass catchers as Joe Mixon continues to age. However, unfortunately, behind that you've got not much. Now, neon greens are S-tier players. Yellows, this kind of like mustard yellow here, that's a guy who might lose his job coming up, just not someone you can really depend on moving forwards. And these orange players are guys on their way out or guys who may never get a chance. Malik Willis, 3rd-round quarterbacks don't have a great history. Baker Mayfield just got fired on his day off. Think about that. Tyler Huntley's a career backup. So that is a whole. Now we're going to talk about your running backs. A pretty solid room for you here, honestly, especially for a guy who just went, 4-9. Najee, solid value. Gets a lot of volume. Been playing through a lot of injuries this year. I've got him in my other league. I feel the pain there, Rich. I do. But he's still valuable, and I think next year he's been getting healthier, and his production's been increasing. His yards per carry have been going up from kind of down nowhere near 4 for the first 7-8 weeks of the season, and after the bye week, he went for 4.9 a carry, 4.5 a carry, 3.5 a carry, and 5.0 per carry. So Najee has actually been significantly improving as the season has gone on, and I expect his value to rebound going forwards, especially if Kenny Pickett takes a step forward the next year and they begin to score more touchdowns. Javonte Williams, another great young prospect. The offense in Denver looks fucking putrid as the problem, though. Big part of it is not having a run game, and Javonte Williams is a big part of that run game. Him coming off the ACL means you're probably going to have to wait for him. The Broncos are probably going to have to get another running back to cover the beginning of the season as Javonte rehabs his knee, meaning that Javonte Williams is likely a perennial running back by committee type of guy. He'll be efficient and probably, hopefully, the red zone guy, but we'll see. Miles Sanders, a guy who could re-sign with the high-powered offense and retain 95% of his value, or a guy who could get let go, replaced through the draft, and sign with the team where he is he could sign with Denver, and his value would be diminished, I would say, knowing that he's going to be splitting time with Miles or with Javonte Sanders or Javonte Williams. I don't want to linger here too much longer. Cam Akers, the Achilles remains undefeated. Nyheim Hines just doesn't score fantasy points right now, and especially on the Buffalo Bills, they don't use him at all. And these guys really have absolutely no impact on your starting roster, on your starting lineup whatsoever. On wide receiver, we've got some decent guys here with Deebo Samuel, Jameson Williams. I do not believe in Jameson Williams as a talent. I did not like him. I watched his a bunch of his highlights, did some highlight scouting. I explained in a video how to do highlight scouting a long time ago. And what I didn't like about Jameson Williams is he never once evaded a tackler, never made somebody miss. His thing was like, if he didn't get the angle on you with his crazy speed, and his speed may not be the same coming off the ACL, if he didn't get the angle with you with his crazy speed, he was not going to make you miss. He was not going to break a tackle. He does not have any contested catch ability, which means he's not going to be a guy that gets used in the red zone. He's going to be a home run hit or bust type of player in the NFL, and that's my, it's my uneducated opinion, but we see that archetype of guy come in and do very little all the time. He's Henry Ruggs 2.0. Doesn't have great hands. He's got good hands, not great. Super fast. Can't make guys miss. Not great in the open field. So, I don't know. Deebo, another guy. He's getting a bit older, Deebo is. He's 26 and on a team that's likely rebuilding like yours, as we'll get into in a bit. That's kind of the age ceiling that I'm really looking to hang on to. You might have a 1-year reload situation here, Rich, but more than likely you've got a 1 or 2 year rebuild on your hands. Calvin Ridley, I like him, like his talent. Again, 28 next year though. Hunter Renfrow, 26. Michael Gallup, I think Gallup is 26. Yeah, Gallup's 26. Wandale's young, and then these guys don't matter practically at all. Laviska may end up doing something, but we'll see. Higbeast, Tunyon, they're fine. Tight ends age slow, but I would be looking to, ship any of these older assets here. So your starting roster, the players that you're going to be using to get points, is going to look like Joe Burrow, whoever the hell you can get, Najee, Javonte Williams. That's like your optimal starting roster. Then your wide receivers are going to be Deebo, J-Mo Willie, Calvin Ridley. In your flex, you'll have Renfrow, Gallup, Sanders, and then Higbee. And on your bench, the only real usable assets you're going to have on your bench are going to be Akers and Wandale, unless I'm missing something. Yeah, that's all your assets. So those are really the only guys that you have on your bench. And so because of that, you've got some good fundamental pieces to build on, but the lack of depth combined with one guaranteed starting quarterback next year means that you're likely in for a pretty big rebuild. The good news is that rebuilds are fun. Joe Burrow is a great anchor for your quarterback position for up to the next 8 years and carries a lot of value if you decide you want to sell him. You can basically retool your entire team for a Joe Burrow. Deebo and Jameson Williams could be great anchors for a wide receiver room. Strong running back duo can anchor your team for the next 2 to 3 years, but you got to keep in mind, in 3 years, Najee's going to be 27, and Javonte Williams, who is on your IR, is going to be 25. So Javonte Williams will still be good, but Najee being 27, going on 28, you'll want to get rid of Najee as you are a rebuilder. I know Najee is young in NFL years, but not in physical years. The problem is that if you'll be able to get the rest of your roster, the problem is you might not be able to get the rest of your roster competitive in that 2 to 3 year window that Najee has for you. So it's certainly a pretty decent starting roster on paper. The problem is it leaves absolutely no room for error. error being like, what if Jameson Williams isn't good? What if Calvin Ridley comes back and is not sharp? What if he's not the number one pass catcher in Jacksonville? What if Michael Gallup gets injured again? What if Hunter Renfrow just was a one-year wonder? What if Miles Sanders gets released from his contract's up in Philadelphia? What if he ends up in Denver in a timeshare with Javonte Williams in a bad offense? It just having only two guys and guys with big question marks as your bench players being Akers and Wandale, even if you reload through the 2023 draft, it's just, I think you're not going to find that you're able to compete with that roster unless Malik Willis gets a starting job and is a stud. In that case, I'd say you could definitely have a chance to put the wins together and make the playoffs. Now, my diagnosis for what to do with your team would be to sell your running backs immediately. Miles Sanders needs to go to a contender for a mid-second round pick, plus whatever else you can scrape together there. I like to use keep trade cut to balance my trades and find out how much my guys are worth. And I always believe that the player who's acquiring the win now asset should be the one who's overpaying. That's what I do in my other league. It's what I'm going to do in this league once I'm in my win now window. I will be making overpays to get those players because that's just, I feel like because we are a league that has a prize pool, winning is inherently more valuable than tanking because you get yourself a shot at that $400 prize. Najee needs to get traded to a contender for a first-round pick plus whatever else you can get. First and a second would not be out of the question for Najee, especially if it's a late first and a late second. Definitely a 1-2. I think you need to get, by selling guys like Akers, Sanders, and Najee, and then I would hold on to Javonte until next year when he's scoring points. You'll be able to replace your kind of short shelf life running backs with a much longer shelf life of young wide receivers and quarterbacks. So like just Najee, Javonte, and Sanders alone should net you probably 5 to 6 young unproven assets / picks. Ridley should be sold when he starts scoring points next season. Gallup as well. You can consider holding on to Debo because he's so talented. He's just young enough if you want to try and turn it around in a 1 to 2 year reload as opposed to a rebuild. But he could also be sold to move on to younger players or picks, and he is one of your more valuable assets. Now, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to target like a 20, if you want to try and be competing next year, you're going to have to sell your 2024 picks. If you want to take 2023 off and compete in 2024, I would stock up on both 2024 and 2025 picks because in the year that you want to win, you can sell your picks. I think of picks like cash. In 2024, you sell your 25 picks because that'll be the upcoming draft. You can sell those picks for players that are going to help fill out your roster. Say you got a little bit of depth that you need like an elite starter. You sell like a first and a second for a guy like someone like a Chris Godwin. This year, I would love a first and second return on a guy like Chris Godwin. I think that would be decent. Now, obviously, you're not going to be buying Godwin like probably 2 or 3 years from now. It'll be someone else, but someone in a Chris Godwin type situation with Chris Godwin level production. Anyways, I'm just stuck on Chris Godwin because I've been trying to sell him for a long time. But good news is Godwin's been getting healthier and stronger. That's all I'm going to run down. That is my audit of Rich's team. Rich, I hope you enjoyed. Everyone else, I hope this gives you guys a little bit of insight as to the players you could go and bother Rich about. And next up is going to be Juan's team. I've been talking to Juan a lot and looking at his roster and diagnosing it in my head quite a bit. So I'm going to be taking on Juan's roster and showing you guys some of the things that he has, some of the moves that he has available to him and what he can do. Even if this isn't your team, I hope this helps kind of like teach y'all how to think about Dynasty and how to, especially some of you guys who are new to Dynasty, I'm new myself, but I'm regurgitating a lot of what smarter people than me have been saying. So anyways, I will see y'all in the next one. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.